Hello, and welcome to the Mad Knitting YouTube channel. This is episode 37. My name is Susan. My pronouns are she, her, hers. You can find me online as madtownmama on Ravelry or madtown_mama on Instagram. And I'm coming to you from a corner of my kitchen/dining room on a very gloomy day in Madison, Wisconsin. Today is Tuesday, April 4th, 2023, and it's a really big day here because it is a day of the spring elections. Normally, a nonpartisan off-year election would not be like national news, but in Wisconsin, we have a Supreme Court race that could tip the balance one way or the other. So a lot of people across the country are watching us today. Basically, what's at stake are reproductive rights. There is an abortion law from 1849 that one party would love to uphold, despite the fact that that law was passed before anybody had any rights, except for white males, and before there was such a thing as germ theory or any of those things. Anyway, that's one thing. We have voting rights in the balance, and we also have the most gerrymandered election maps in the whole country. And the Supreme Court could be deciding, our state Supreme Court could be deciding on all of those things in the very near future. So we've got one candidate, it's nonpartisan, but we've got one candidate who is running basically as a progressive, who would uphold reproductive rights, who would expand voting rights, and who would try to ensure that we have fair maps in our elections. And we have another candidate who actively tried to join the movement to overturn the 2020 election in favor of our previous president, who I will not name. So in case it's not obvious, I voted for Janet Protasiewicz, and I really hope she wins. There's other stuff on the ballot. There are 3 statewide referenda that, if they pass, could be very damaging. So I voted no on all of those. We also have a mayoral race and a local school board race and some other stuff. But it's the Supreme Court election that's really getting all the attention. This is not a video channel about politics necessarily, but I do feel that it is important to be upfront about my position on things, because I can see directly how political decisions affect people's everyday lives. However, that's all I'm going to say about that. I have a lot of knitting to share with you today. It's been 3 weeks since I last made a video, and I have finished several things, started just a couple of things, but I don't want everything to pile up too much, because then these videos get too long and, I've got other stuff to do. So I'm just going to get right to it. So I would like to start with finished objects, and I have several. I've even made a list here to try and keep on track and not forget anything. So the first thing I'm going to share is what I am wearing. I just finished this sweater. I started it a while ago. I started this back in September. I had to check my notes. It's called Light Ease, and it is a pattern by Alicia Plummer. I'm going to do a little 360 so you can see it. I am so happy with how this thing turned out. It fits me really well. It's very comfortable. And as soon as I finally finished it and put it on, I thought about how I could make another one. So the pattern itself is pretty straightforward. I mean, you can see it's just sort of a basic sweatshirt style pullover. It's knit top down. There are raglan increases. There are yarn overs, you can probably see here. There's a little bit of A-line shaping in the body if you want. I made the sleeves extra long. I have complained here in the past about how I really hate it when sleeves ride up. it's annoying to me. It's kind of a pet peeve with sweaters, so I make them extra long. And in fact, these sleeves I made so long that I have to fold up the ribbing on the cuff if I don't want it to cover my hand. And I am okay with that. I know that extra long sleeves are probably annoying to other people, but for me, I like it because my hands get cold. I like to be able to cover them, and I can just fold the cuffs back when I need my hands to be, you know, more free for things. So I'm very happy with that. The detail that really makes this sweater special is the collar treatment. You have the option of just leaving this open, and I'll insert a picture here of a quick selfie I snapped when I had all the knitting done except for the collar. And I kind of liked the open neckline, except for me, with this size and this yarn and everything, it was so wide that I think it probably would have stretched out and eventually just not been very wearable. So I went ahead and picked up the stitches, and you knit up this funnel neck basically, and then you make an I-cord. Mine could have been a little longer, but I would never tie it probably, so that's okay. And then you put waste yarn in at a certain point to mark where you're gonna stitch down the casing for the I-cord. And you have a purl turning round. You do 1 round of purl for turning. And then you place the I-cord around the top of the collar and then stitch it down. So it's easier than trying to pull the I-cord through the casing after you're done. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I really love it. I happen to really like extra fabric around my neck. I like the funnel neck. I like to wear turtlenecks. I like sort of drapey cowl necks, and I'm not really sure why that is, but for me, that's what I like. I really hate having excess fabric anywhere else. I don't like sweaters with a whole lot of ease. I really cannot stand like a lot of extra fabric in the sleeves, like the trend of like balloon sleeves or sort of big full sleeves. I know they would get in my way and annoy me, and I wouldn't wear them. And I'm not into ruffles or peplums or any of that stuff, but for some reason, if I have a little extra something going on around my neck, I happen to like that. So that's just my style. That's how it is. The yarn I used, I almost forgot to mention that, is something that was discontinued. It's kind of a strange one. It's Berroco, and I think it's called Boboli lace. It's been discontinued for a while. I bought it on clearance at a local shop that's no longer here. And it's like a single ply. I think it's a fairly tightly spun single ply, but it's like not even 50% wool. It's maybe 40% wool, and there's some nylon and polyester. So there's a little bit of a sheen to it. And because of the single ply, I don't know how well this is going to hold up. Another aspect of this yarn is that it was a little bit thick and thin as I was knitting it, and some of the thinner spots, I'm not sure how well it's going to hold up. We'll see if after I wear it a few times and have to wash it a couple of times. It's hand wash only, which is fine. But if some holes work in and I have to repair it, we'll see. I had 5 skeins of it, and there was pretty generous yardage for each skein. So I've got almost a whole skein left, and I'm going to hang on to it in case I have to do some patchwork or, repair work on this eventually. But overall, I'm really happy with how it feels, and hopefully it'll last. You can see that it's not hand dyed at all, but there's a little bit of variation in the color. Not really enough to pool or stripe exactly, but there's some depth and variation going on, which I also like. So highly recommend. Alicia Plummer is a lovely designer. I don't remember how many sizes this sweater comes in. I made the second size, so I think the finished bust is about 34 or 35 inches around, which gives me a couple inches of ease. she has written this same design for a couple of different weights. So this is light ease. You can do it in sport weight or fingering weight. You get 6 stitches to the inch for this pattern, but she has also written a worsted weight version and a bulky weight version. I will make sure that there are links to those in the description box below here. I think Ravelry is really the only place where you can buy her patterns, as far as I know. So unfortunately, those will just be Ravelry links. But so if you can't use Ravelry, I'm not really sure the best way to access them. But yeah, she's very conscious about being size inclusive and has some really, really good stuff out there. So I recommend this pattern. My second finished object is a pair of socks. Got a whole little basket here I'm gonna hold in my lap. So this pair of socks, I started working on a while ago. I don't remember how long ago. I know I've talked about these at least a couple of times on the channel before. They are, as you can see, pretty basic. I didn't use a pattern. These are a perfect example of a project that I pick up and put down when I need something to work on that doesn't require looking at instructions. So most of these got knit while I was sitting in Zoom meetings for work, essentially. So I use size 1 needles, cast on 64 stitches, do a 2x2 rib for the cuff, keep going in plain stockinette. Normally when I do plain socks, I prefer a heel flap and gusset, but for these I decided to do a short row heel so that it didn't distort the stripe pattern too much. So the short row heel was worked over half of the stitches, and then I did pretty standard decreases for the toe. Rather than graft the toe, when I get to the last 16 stitches or so, I knit 2 together all the way around and just pull the end through. And I've talked about that a bunch before. That's just my preferred way of doing sock toes. I don't have to graft and I like the fit. The yarn is, again, it's a discontinued thing. I got it on clearance from Webs. And I can't remember the brand, but the yarn is called something like Berlin Color Block or Berlin Yak Color Block. There is a little bit of yak content in the yarn, and that's why I wanted to try it. So it's mostly superwash yarn. There's a little bit of nylon, and then there was 10% yak. And that yak gives it a heathery quality. I think there was also something in the dye technique that sort of gives it this, you know, mottled look. But the yak content, because yak fibers are naturally more of a gray or brownish color as far as I know, I think it just sort of tones everything down. So this is a very muted collection of pastel colors rather than being bright, and I like that. I will probably keep these socks for myself. I made them to fit me, and they do fit me very well. I have a size 7 women's foot. There's always a chance I could end up giving them away, but I wear my socks pretty hard. I wear them running and walking. I wear them many months through the year when it's chilly here, and some of the pairs I have are really starting to wear out. I know some people are like really into repairing socks and darning and like hand weaving little patches to put on them. I am not. I wear my socks out and then I am like done with them. I'm ready to pitch them and just make a brand new pair. And part of it's because like I said, I really wear my socks out. So by the time they are like worn through, the entire bottom of the foot is practically done for. And rather than create a patch that's going to cover that much of my foot, I would rather just get going with another pair of socks. So that's that. Now, I almost never use up an entire 100 gram skein of yarn when I am making socks, especially if they are plain socks for myself. And I was really in the mood to just use up what I had left and be done with that skein and not have to save it anywhere. So I got the bright idea to hold it along with some leftover Knitpicks Aloft that I used in the shawl that I showed last time, that big bright green shawl called Honey? I think it was called Honey or Honeycomb. Anyway, I had like a partial skein of this sort of scummy acid green mohair silk blend left, and I really liked how it looked alongside the sock yarn. So I made a cowl with it. I held them together, and this is what I made. Now, I have to tell you, my original plan was to make a hat, because that's kind of my default go-to. If I have leftover yarn and I don't know what else to do with it, I just cast on and make a hat. So I had size 5 needles. I held the 2 yarns together and I cast on, I think, 128 stitches. And I started going and going and going and going. And I got about this far in it. And I realized that the yarn I had left was really shrinking. I really did not have that much left. And I wondered if I was actually going to have enough to make an entire hat, you know, to get through the crown decreases. So I tried it on my head at that point, and I realized that no, I was not going to have enough length for those crown decreases with a folded brim, which I really do prefer in a hat because it's warmer and it makes the length more adjustable. So I pulled out the needle and I was like ready to just pull the entire thing out and start over with fewer stitches, because I figured, well, if I cast on 120 stitches instead of 128, it'll be a little snugger, which would be a good thing because this is actually kind of loose, and maybe, you know, I'll have more left to do a longer length and get that crown. But with the needle pulled out and this thing sitting off the needles, I realized, oh, this would actually be a lovely cowl instead. And that way I wouldn't have to rip it out. So I very carefully put it back on my needles and just kept going in this 1x1 rib until it looked like I had about enough to bind off. So I bound off with a stretchy bind off. The easiest one I know is to knit 2 together through the back loop and then slip that stitch back on the left needle and keep doing that all the way around. So it's actually a little bit wavy at the top, which I think for a cowl is fine. But anyway, when I was done, this 2.5 inches of the sock yarn is all that I had left of that. There was a little bit more of the mohair, so I was able to weave that end in, but I saved this just so I could show you how close I came. And if I had run out, all I would have had to do was unpick the bind off and like unpick one row and just have one round less, and I would have had plenty for the bind off. But I have to say, it was very satisfying to use up literally every last bit of this yarn. So, you know, I don't even know that I'm so wild about how this looks in color combination. It's a little bit, I mean, some people would love this combination of sort of greens and greenish blue. It's a little too sort of swampy pond scummy for me, but I'm gonna keep it because it is also very soft and warm. I really like how close fitting it is around my neck, because there are days here in the winter when it is so cold that I really, really need something close around my neck that I can kind of have tucked under my coat to keep the wind out. And you know, big shawls and big scarves and big cowls don't quite do that because they tend to hang down or slip off or whatever. And this will be nice and snug. So it's a very practical item and very warm and fuzzy. So that's that. Now, I think I showed you last time that I started a sweater for my niece. I have two nieces that live in Virginia. They're my brother's daughters, and I love them so much, and I miss them terribly, and I wish I could see them. I wish I could see them more often than I do. And because I can't, I make up for it by knitting them and making them lots of things, which I know isn't the same, but it's the best I can do. So the older one had a birthday a few weeks ago. She turned 7 in March, and I got started on a sweater that I intended would be for her. This is called Snowflake. It is a pattern by Tin Can Knits. And it's from a collection called Great White North. You can buy the pattern individually online from either Ravelry or their website, or you can buy the whole collection. Way back when I bought the whole collection, so I have it in paper copy. There's a lot of good stuff in there that I would like to make someday. So I had my eye on this design for a long time. I keep thinking maybe I would like to make a version for myself, just because I really love this lace pattern on the yoke. And you could do it in one color if you want, but in their examples in the book, in their samples, they have 2 color versions, and I love the look of the different color on the yoke, so that's kind of what I have in my head. So that's what I made. Now, one thing that has me hesitant about making it for myself, and I think I mentioned this last time, is they don't have any kind of shaping to raise the back neck. As you can see, it's the same for the back as for the front. But as I mentioned before, when I looked at them, there's like 1,100 projects online on Ravelry, and I looked through many of them, and they all look really good. So maybe it's okay that this doesn't have neck shaping. I don't know. Now, you'll notice that the niece's birthday was a few weeks ago, and it is still with me in my house and has not been sent to her. That's because I didn't check gauge before I started. I just, used DK yarn. I followed what the ball band said. I followed what the pattern said, and I didn't notice until I was sailing down the main body that it was looking pretty small for a 7-year-old child. So I stopped and checked my gauge, and sure enough, I'm getting 6 stitches to the inch when the pattern calls for 5.5. Now that is a significant difference. I didn't feel like ripping it out and redoing it, but happily I have 2 nieces and the other one will be 5 at the end of May. So I am saving this for her. Her older sister got a stack of brand new books to read, which are honestly probably more exciting than a sweater anyway. So I'm hanging on to this for the little one. One of the cool features about this sweater is that there's an opening on the yoke. I don't think you need it to get over your head. It's just a stylistic choice, but you knit this little buttonhole band, and then you have these buttons here. And I haven't sewn on buttons yet, although I'm still calling it done, but I do want to show you the buttons I picked. I have these little sort of clear, not clear, but translucent, I don't know if I can like show you without covering them up, but it's like a translucent pale pink button, and it's got this shank on the back so you don't see the buttonholes. And it's not quite the same color pink as the yarn, but as the yarn for the main body, but I think it's going to look really, really good when they're all sewn on. So that needs to happen before I send it off. The yarn I bought at the Sow's Ear, which is a knit cafe and a knit shop and cafe in Verona. I love that place. I really like to bike there. It's a nice bike ride to get there. Anyway, the yarn was on clearance there. It's Rowan Yak DK, Softyak DK, and it's a cotton yak blend. So it's very soft. I'm hoping that it will be nice and light for spring and summer, for warm weather. And the yak content, again, like for the socks I showed you, I think it's even more prominent that you can see how those dark fibers kind of give it a heathery look. So this is Snowflake. Ended up being for a 5-year-old. Okay. Now, speaking of my nieces, I got started on another project that I am really excited about. This is a pattern by Susan B. Anderson that I bought when it came out. I came close to buying the kit. Oh, I think I talked about this in my last video. It's called Good Bear, and this, I just have a black and white printer, but this gives you an idea. Susan B. Anderson is so brilliant, y'all. So she's got this little bear pattern. You can buy kits from her website, the Bear Wool Co. website, and here's a better picture of it. I didn't buy the kit. I almost did, and then I came to my senses because I have plenty of yarn. I don't need to buy a kit. But I bought the pattern and went stash diving. And I think last time all I had was the legs and they weren't even stuffed yet. But I have now finished a bear. A whole bear. It is so cute, you all. And it's a little fiddly because you have to follow instructions. You know, there's shaping and like different pieces and stuff, but you basically do it in one piece. And you even, for the arms, for example, you pick up stitches around kind of where the shoulder would be and you knit out for the arms. So there's not that much finishing to do. And you have to stuff as you go, so it can get a little bit of messy, a little bit of a pain. I'm going to show you what I used for stuffing. This is from a pillow. This is like latex filling from a pillow. It's not the most pleasant stuff to work with because it like sends fibers in the air and it's kind of lumpy, but it's like a natural latex and I have it on hand and it's not made out of polyester. So that's what I'm using. So this is Good Bear, and I made him the little clothes, and I thought I would wait and get him dressed on camera so you can see what his clothes look like. So first of all, he's got little pants. He's got little pants, and I used this dark teal color. While I'm getting him dressed, I'll tell you about the yarn. The yarn is called Whiskey. It was discontinued years and years ago by Reynolds, and it's really a shame because it is nice, sort of rustic wool, really nice for color work. I made a sweater out of it that is one of my favorites to wear. And there's a bunch left over from that sweater, including the dark brown, which was perfect for the bear. The gray here is just a little bit of Cascade 220 Sport, but everything else I used is Whiskey. Okay, so he's got his little pants. In the pattern, you have a choice between a couple of different sweaters you could make. For this bear, I decided to make a jacket. It's a little garter stitch jacket in this really nice mustard gold. The jacket needs buttons. I think with buttons, it's going to be a little snug on this bear, but that's okay. It's possible I overstuffed him. It's possible that my gauge was just a little tight. I don't know. So that's the jacket. That is not all. He's got a little hat to keep his head warm. And the hat is designed so that you even fold up the brim. So there's a little bit of ribbing on the brim. You fold it up and stick it on his head. And the way it worked out for my bear, I'm a little afraid his eyes will be covered up so he won't be able to see, but that's okay because his head is warm. So this is Good Bear with his whole outfit minus the buttons for his sweater. And the hat is this really, really pale, sort of teal leaning ice blue. And I like how these go together. Now, you'll notice that I have one bear, but I have two nieces. So yes, I have started a second bear. The second bear will be identical to the first in terms of just the body. So the naked bear will look exactly like this one. But once he's clothed, I thought I would make a little bit different outfit, like change up the outfit. So for the second bear, my plan is to make the pants out of this color, which is like a really dark lavender, mauvey lavender. Like it's actually not too far off from the sweater I'm wearing, just like a little bit paler and dustier colored. And the other option you have for the bear sweater is there's a little colorwork pullover. So I think what I'll do is use this light glacier, light teal, icy, whatever it is, blue for the main color for the sweater. And then you have two contrast colors. So I'll use this for one of the contrast colors, and then I'll use the dark blue from the bear's the dark brown from the bear's body as the second contrast color for that colorwork sweater. And the hat, I'll probably just do the hat out of this again. Or I could do the hat out of the gold, I don't know. I mean, it takes like 5 minutes to make the clothes. They really do not take very long. The bear is a little fussier because you have to stuff it and there's different parts and stuff, but the clothes go really fast. So that is in the works. That is in the works for that. Now, since I have seemed to have kind of moved into works in progress since, you know, I've got one bear finished and one in progress, I'm going to show you the few things that I have on the needles. I've been on such a finishing jag with this sweater and those socks and that cowl that I don't have so much in progress, and I'm a little bit at odds. I have figured out that I have a real sweet spot for a number of works in progress, because if it's too many, I feel a little bit scattered and overwhelmed. Like it's too hard to make enough progress on anything to see that I'm getting anything done. But if I don't have enough, I get like a little anxious, because I have learned that I have a lot going on in my life. I have a lot that I am busy with and to keep track of. And knitting really is one of those things that keeps me grounded and focused and kind of able to work through the daily stress of my life, which honestly isn't like horrible. Like I have a good life, but you know, we need these things to keep, I need these things to sort of keep myself from spiraling into anxiety and overwhelm. So I have I need between 3 and 5 works in progress. I always need something that's a little more engaging, like the bear, you know, something where I'm following instructions or have some kind of color work or intricate cables to work on. And I always need at least 1 or 2 things that don't even require instructions or too much thought, that I can just sort of pick up and take with me wherever I'm going. Things like plain socks, things like 1x1 ribbed hats that may or may not turn into a cowl, stuff like that. All that to say, I'm starting to get a little twitchy. Like I need to find more, you know, start another 1 or 2 projects so I've got enough going that I'm not finding myself at odds with nothing to work on and kind of spinning my wheels and thinking, what do I do next? What do I do next? When I really just need to pick up something and knit to keep my hands busy. Anyway, so what I do have in progress are 2 things. The first is socks for my dad. And this normally would be a mindless take-along project, except that the first sock is getting to the point where I have to decide exactly where to start decreasing for the toe, which means I have to stop and measure and eyeball it enough that I can't just sort of take it with me without thinking. Anyway, I've showed this before and I've made some progress. My dad's birthday is later this month. Last year, I knit him a whole ass sweater, but I can't do that every year. That's a lot of knitting. And I don't think he needs a new sweater every year, but I think he could use a pair of socks. So I picked this brown, which seems like a good color for my dad. I added the stripes so it sort of looks like a hiking sock or like a work boot sock. Actually, I have to confess that wasn't my idea. I got that idea from Sarah Shira of Imagined Landscapes. She mentioned that she was using Knitpicks Stroll Tweed, which is the yarn I'm using, to make socks for her whole family, and she has that sort of striped cuff work sock idea going for all of them. And I thought that was a great idea, so I'm copying it. So I've got this brown, which I don't have the label. I think it might be Reindeer Heather. Anyway, it's this really nice, rich, dark brown, and I'm using Oyster Heather for the stripes, just in the cuff. The rest is plain brown. My good old reliable heel flap and gusset. I don't know how well it's showing up, but makes for a nice heel that fits well, in my opinion. And that's what I've got. You can see that tweed flecks are really quite prominent. I don't know how well Knitpicks Stroll Tweed holds up in a pair of socks, because I've actually only used it for hats and a baby sweater that these all got given away. So I don't know how well it holds up, but it feels nice and soft. So I think it'll be very comfortable on the foot. Right. My very last work in progress is, do I even have it here? Do I even have it here? I do. I do. I like kind of keep forgetting that I even have it, but this is a polka hat of sorts. I've made a lot of polka hats I've talked about. I like to do this out of sock yarn or fingering weight yarn, as long as I have enough, because you need quite a lot to get the height. But this is Mountain Colors Barefoot, which I don't think you can get anymore. I think I made socks for one of my kids when they were really little, so I have a lot left. And it's this gorgeous sort of black, midnight navy, bright blue streaked color. There's a little bit of mohair in it, which makes it extra warm. Mohair does not bother me, so I'm not worried about using mohair in hat, at least not in this blend. And I didn't bother with the provisional cast on because I think I picked this up literally as we were running out the door to go to a high school band concert, I think. And I knew I needed something to keep my hands busy, and I didn't have time to fuss with a provisional cast on, so I just grabbed the needles and the yarn, and that was it. So when it comes time to do the lining, I will have to pick up the stitches from the cast on edge rather than a provisional cast on, but that's fine. So I'm pretty close, I think, to being ready to do crown decreases. And yeah, it's a great pattern, y'all. It's the polka hat is from a book by the Bergen sisters. They are Japanese Canadian designers. Oh, Moon and Turtle, that's the name of the book. And there's a lot of stuff in there that I want to make, but this one hat is the thing I keep coming back to. I've made like 3 or 4 of them by now. So anyway, that is my work in progress. I've also been swatching for a whole lot of stuff as I think about what to knit next, but I think that I'm just going to stop there, and I'll share more about that next time. And hopefully it won't be a whole 3 weeks before I make another video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.